Escape Tale Low Memory. This is the second game that I play in the Escape Tales system. Like the previous one, it is a game that I play solitaire. You can play it by yourself, or you can play it cooperatively with multiple people working together to solve the puzzles. It is a game that is part of this giant, or fairly large by now, genre of escape rooms in a box. So games that simulate the experience of an escape room, but that you can play at home. You don't have to go to a physical escape room, which is, of course, all the most important in times of pandemic, where we should all stay home as much as we can. Escape Tales, the title of the system is faithful, you can believe it, because it has to do with escape rooms. It definitely has the feeling, the flavor of a string of puzzles that you are solving towards an overarching goal. And also it has tales, different from other systems such as Unlock or Exit or other systems like that. This is a system that has a commitment to storytelling. That really is trying to tell you a story. Precisely because of this, even more than in other reviews of this kind of games, I must avoid spoilers. Whatever I tell you is either something you can find in the back of the box or maybe in the rulebook before you start the adventure. So, as for the mechanics of the game, if you played other Escape Tales games, the general idea remains the same, which is you're going to have some cards that represent locations, and you're going to have tokens that you place in different sections of the locations, sort of like representing the fact that you're analyzing them in details, that you're zooming in, and that will lead you to either paragraphs in a book that describe what you find there, or other cards that show you more in detail the area. And so you're kind of like looping around from cards representing locations, paragraphs describing events or describing the location, cards showing further details or showing maybe items that you collect, things like that. And very often you will encounter puzzles, and there is a website/app. It's a website that works like an app, and you go there and you will input the solution of the puzzle. It also has a hint system, which will give you hints of very unpredictable value. Sometimes the hint just rephrases some elements of the puzzle, and so it doesn't really tell you anything new. And some of the times it's very valuable, and some of the times it's completely incomprehensible. And then, however, if you keep pressing the hints button, the system gives you the solution, which to me is very, 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 very important, because when I play a game, I believe I have the right to decide how much frustration I want. And if I decide to hit my head against the wall until either it bleeds or the wall begs me to stop, or I find a solution, that's my prerogative, but I also want to have the option, if I don't feel like doing all that, to just press a button and be given the solution. And sometimes both sides apply in a single game, 5 minutes different from one another, because that's the way it is. I'm playing the game, and I like the option of being able to skip any puzzle I want, or just delve into any puzzle that I want, if I want and when I want. There will be times, however, where you're just stuck on a puzzle, you get the solution from the app, and it still feels anticlimactic because the app doesn't necessarily tell you how you got there. It gives you the solution. From the last hint that was cryptic, then is the solution, and not having the intermediate passages sometimes is a little bit frustrating. This is for the general mechanical ideas. The puzzles are pretty tough. I found this slightly tougher than in the other games in the system that I play, which is Children or Wyrmwood, and I don't know why. Maybe just different day or something. Mechanically speaking, another thing, however, that sets this apart from a lot of other games, from Unlock to Escape Room, the game system, is that there is no time limit, which is also, again, pretty nice, because you can take as much time as you want. The game here, Low Memory, is divided into 3 chapters, into 3 scenarios, 3 stories from the point of view of different characters, but they all have to do with a certain situation. So it's a matter of perspective, but it's also a matter of different chapter contributing differently and advancing the story, while maybe also casting some light on events that you've seen previously. As you can probably tell from the image on the cover, it's a sci-fi. Also, again, not a spoiler because you have a lot of information here. It's a sci-fi situation. We are in the near future, and so you have some weird gizmos and gadgets. You have, of course, also people that are obsessed with security, and so they set up a lot of puzzles around because that goes with the genre. If it's a situation where no one loves puzzles, no one has decided to lock their door with a puzzle and to scatter clues around the door. I mean, that's what we all do, right? That's exactly how it works. But if you don't have those kind of people, then you can have this kind of game. So we're in the near future, and there's a general Black Mirror kind of feel to it. It's like technology plays a big role. It's a fairly dark story. There are some pretty dark, mature moments and topics, and maybe one or two illustrations that were like, ooh, I'm glad I'm playing this one alone, and my daughters are not here to see these things. So definitely a mature game that is aimed mainly at adult players. I would not necessarily recommend this for every family, or at least, play it by yourself, have a look at it, and then you decide if you want to play with younger players. But my daughters are 8 and 10, and I don't feel any urge to play with either of them anytime soon, not even the 10-year-old. So, Black Mirror-y kind of situation. You start the story as one character, following one character, and the character has to solve puzzles to complete some objectives. Then the story ends temporarily. You jump to another character that also, strangely enough, has to solve some puzzles to be able to advance the story. And lo and behold, of course, the third character also has at least a similar path to walk. So, but again, I was pretty impressed because it didn't feel like the stories were just there as window dressing. I started caring about the characters. I wanted to know what would happen to the characters. There are some interesting moral implications here and there, and some decisions that you make that, again, they have a moral impact on the story. And again, it's not Tolstoy, it's not grand storytelling, it's still fairly minimalistic. The prose, again, is not really literature. I feel the prose is almost like a script, almost like a draft. It's almost like you have to add some flavor to it. The prose per se is not particularly flavorful. But if you get in the story, if you picture things in your mind, if you add a little bit or detail in your mind, then the story is compelling. Again, the prose, in a sense, almost feels like it's a summary of a novel with some literary ambition, but the summary doesn't have that literary ambition. I don't know how to explain it differently, but that's how it felt. But that is to say, the prose wasn't particularly compelling, but the overall storytelling in my mind, in my head, worked. And so actually I was impressed by that. I was impressed that the story, the overall experience does manage to combine puzzle elements and storytelling element. You must play the 3 scenarios in order for them to make sense. But again, the good thing is you can play one in a couple of hours, take a break, another one, etc., etc., etc. Overall, I find this to be a solid game. I definitely enjoy playing it. There were a couple of, again, anticlimactic moments and weaknesses here and there, but you have a string of like 30, 40 puzzles. You can't please everybody. The replay value is low. You're going to see a lot of these puzzles. I find that the other game that I played, Children of Windwoods, there were more puzzles that you did not discover at the end, and there was maybe more variety. There are multiple endings, but here when you see one, you pretty much understand what the other ones must be. Even if you don't know them, you're like, oh well, if that thing changes there, okay. You kind of get a sense of the range of possible endings. It's not huge. However, I'll tell you this, when you reach the ending, there is a really cool mechanic to determine which ending you're actually gonna unlock in that iteration of the story. But again, I see hypothetically then you go back and try different things. But I don't think many people will go back from booklet number 1 and go through the story, redoing most puzzles that they have already seen, to maybe see one different puzzle, 2 different puzzles, and unlock a scenario, unlock an ending which is slightly different, and you kind of get a sense. I guess maybe some people will rewind just until, you know, before the last puzzle to see multiple endings. So again, you have multiple endings, but the replay value is not going to be huge. However, again, we play escape rooms in a box knowing that they are not going to last. We're not going to play them a million times. And so you have 3 scenarios. Each you're going to play at least once. The puzzles are fairly challenging. The hint system, again, will not please everybody because it's kind of unreliable, and how usable it is varies vastly. But overall, I found the story entertaining and interesting with some interesting moral decisions. The puzzles challenging and overall fair. And again, worst case scenario, boop, read the solution and move on and enjoy the story. Because again, what is good here is that if the puzzles are disappointing, there is a story that is interesting. In other kind of systems, if the puzzles don't work and the story doesn't have really any interest whatsoever, then without the puzzles, nothing is left. But here again, you have the story and you have the puzzles, and I think overall they go together well. So I definitely enjoyed Escape Tales Low Memory.